So, welcome to this week's episode of Courageous Leaders Changing the World. This week, we have the beautiful Athena. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Cody.
So, the podcast is called Courageous Leaders Changing the World. So, what's a time in your life where you had to summon more courage than any other time?
I think that the most courage I had to summon during the journey of my business was right at the start. And it's interesting because at that point, I didn't even see it as a business. I really just saw this is my spiritual path. And to get my work out there and create the change I want to in the world, I have to do this. And I was very young. So I started going to these marketing events because I was like, okay, if I learn marketing, I can get my message out there, my vision out there. And I remember I signed up to work with a coach who was like really events, marketing, all that stuff. And I remember I started going to these events and programs, and I think I was about 21, 22, and I was like just this spiritual healer, and I would walk into this room full of middle-aged men, like men in their 40s, 50s, all in like SEO, Google AdWords, marketing. And I remember just being like, okay, Athena, like how committed are you to your purpose and getting your message out there and doing your work? Because being in that space, that room, I just felt so out of place. And I felt I could feel there was some judgment and I didn't know how to hold that and process it at the time. So for me, even just going to those events and learning and actually saying, I'm Athena, this is what I do, owning that and claiming that in a space where I felt really misunderstood and judged was something that required a lot of courage, because I feel like it's almost easier now because I am surrounded by my people, like people who get what I do, but at the start they didn't. And so it felt just claiming that, owning that and saying that felt like it required a lot of courage from me.
I love that. When people are facing off with like that level of misunderstanding and judgment, what do you normally say to people in that experience?
When they're experiencing judgment from others and projections, it's a good question. And if I reflect on it, I feel like no matter what we do, we're going to receive judgments and projections from others. And I'm also a big believer that we are creating our reality and our reflection. So whenever I receive an amount of judgment, which interestingly I don't, I have quite a decent following, and everything that I put out into the world, it gets certain attention, but I don't get a lot of negative attention. I'm always surprised by that. I'm like, I feel like with the stuff I'm doing, I'd get a lot more haters or people online commenting things, but I don't really get a lot of that. And I think it's because I treat like even my audience as a direct reflection of me. So if someone comes into my comments and says something or judges me, I'm always like, ooh, where am I not honoring myself or seeing myself or judging myself? And I always treat it as a reflection of myself and an opportunity for growth. And I also treat it as a way to see how much can I hold this? Because if somebody says something and I have a reaction to it, I'm like, ooh, exciting. There's space for growth here, because I'm not just woof, like it's not water off a duck's back. I'm having a reaction to it. So for me, whenever there is anybody experiencing any judgment, I just see it as an opportunity to go deeper into our work, because we are here to be fully self-expressed and claim what we do, and we have to be able to hold the judgment. So anytime we receive it, I believe it's an opportunity for growth.
hmm Yeah, I love that. What's been your journeys throughout your life in terms of relating to the spiritual parts of you then?
My spiritual journey started very, very young. I was telling my husband the other day about like when I remembered my first past lives, and I was 11, and I was having conversations with my guides about what my past lives were and how I died in previous lifetimes. And it's always just been this invisible thread that just anything when I was a child, because I didn't grow up in a spiritual household. Part of my family is Eastern European Slavic, so there is kind of a mysticism there that I definitely grew up around, but the other side is atheist. So I didn't really grow up around it, but there was always this invisible thread pulling me towards, I remember being in primary school and going to the section in the library that had ghosts and paranormal stuff and supernatural stuff, and just always this pull towards it. And I remember being 12 and going to the library and picking up all these like books on witchcraft and spirituality. And then at 16, I had my big spiritual awakening, which was when all my gifts came online and I began really speaking to my guides. And that was what threw me onto my path. And I started studying energy healing at 18. I did Reiki to start with and just immediately went into it. And it is probably the part of me that I most identify with because it has been the biggest theme and grounding pillar in my life ever since I can remember. And I do feel that part of me is responsible for everything that I've created, everything that I get to experience in my life as well.
Hmm. How do you balance that with that? Often when people start to take on that perspective of, where the creators of our reality, they how do I put it? They only have a one-sided view on it. It's like, oh, I created all the good things, but all of the bad things, that's just, how the world is. How do you create a balanced view on
I love that. My view probably isn't balanced on that. I
that?
genuinely I'm pretty. When I was about, I think I was 21, I learned about Ho'oponopono and,
Yeah.
it changed my life. I was quite shocked by how powerful it was. And I remember reading a book that said, in the Huna teachings, it's like, whatever you see in the world, you are fully responsible for. And at that age, I think I really took that on board and I still fully, absolutely believe that. Like, if it's in my reality, I've created that. And I know that someone might be like, that doesn't sound very balanced, Athena, but that is, my perspective. So good, bad. And I try not to look at it as good or bad, just as it is. And there's a reflection for me to see there. But I treat everything as something that I have created. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think that is balanced.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that what
Yeah.
you feel?
You look at the different forms of teachings around it. There's, the Kabbalion talks about it in terms of the law of correspondence, as within, so without. If it's within me, then it's going to be out there. If it's in NLP, then it's perception is projection. It's like anything that we perceive, we're projecting. We're the projector. So if we can actually start to clear it up in us, then it clears it up in reality. And that's one of the things that I love about what you said earlier. It's like so many people, like, they get all of these comments on social media posts, they're putting out ads and stuff, and then they just like avoid that. It's like, oh, I'm going to outsource that to my ad guy so that I don't actually connect with it, rather than actually getting the gift that it is of having that reflection of that thing to be able to go, oh, okay, cool. This is the next thing that's coming up for me. The way that I like to talk about it is, if something triggers you, activates you, it's only ever the next thing scheduled to be loved. And when we can actually take that perspective on it, it allows us to be able to open up to life and actually recognize all of the pieces that it starts to allow ourselves to create that deeper relationship with life, and also, receive so much more from the things that are unendingly given to us in life.
100%. And I love what you're saying about the universal laws, because I feel like people can pick and choose them. And I feel like that comes close to when we talk about spiritual bypassing, when they're like, I like the law of attraction, but I don't like the law that says I'm responsible for everything that I see in my reality. It's like, well, that's the actual energetic spiritual nature of our reality. And it's like, I love what you said about like, this is life. And I am someone who I see my business as the greatest opportunity for spiritual growth. And when I get a challenge in my business now, or a challenge, I get almost excited because I'm like, this is an initiation, or there's another level of me approaching there, because I recognize it's all a gift, right? Every reflection, every bad thing, it's a gift. And I think, like you said, when we own that, we do fall deeper in love with life.
Yeah, definitely. And one of those things, when we start to see things as a gift, we often give our gifts to the world, but we get frustrated or triggered when someone doesn't unwrap it. It's like, you're the gift that keeps on giving, and when we give more of ourselves, then that allows people to be able to see more of themselves at the same time. Just because someone gets triggered on it doesn't actually mean anything about us. It says everything about them. It says everything about their nervous system, all the things that are playing out in them that they need to be able to respond in that way. And when we can actually recognize that they just haven't unwrapped the gift that is you, then it doesn't actually change anything for us, because so many people go into shutdown and suppression when they get those things. They're like, oh, I got, all of this hate from this thing. Now I'm not going to give my gift anymore. What would you say to people that have, been through those things, when they've been through that season where they've had all of these things, they've started to shut down more, and they want to be able to show back up in the world?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I feel, I look back at earlier times in my journey and I'm like, that was definitely me. And when I really went deeper into it, I was like, oh, like I just want to be liked. It's a people pleasing part of me that needed to control and dictate how my soul's work, my medicine was received. And that then made me filtered, right? How can I be an unfiltered channel for what wants to come through me if I'm so focused on how it's received rather than just surrendering to what actually wants to come through me? But I, at the time, couldn't hold someone not liking me, the concept of being rejected, upsetting someone. And now I genuinely see it as a gift. If someone gets triggered by me, I'm like, you're so welcome. Like, that's amazing. So I see it as like the medicine that flows through me and flows through anyone when we are fully self-expressed, owning what wants to flow through us. Some people are going to have a hard time receiving that medicine, but it was given to them because they needed to hear that. But we don't get to dictate how others receive it. And as long as we're focused on how everybody else is receiving our medicine, call it our work, we limit our potential and limit what wants to come through us. And I think this is a perspective I have about our work. Like, I genuinely see us as just these channels of creation. And when we devote to that without having to filter, limit based on what we're getting from the external world, that's when it becomes really incredibly potent medicine that I think changes the world. Because if it's here to change the world, of course it's going to trigger people and upset people.
Yeah, I love that. You mentioned channeling a few times there. Do you think everyone can channel?
Yes. 100%. When I look at it, it's our energetic anatomy, right? It's not something that we have to install. It's not something you're like, oh, let me go get a channel or whatever. It's like we were all born with a channel. It's there. We're just not taught how to properly use it and activate it. So we disconnect from our true nature, but it's an inbuilt part of us.
So how do you teach someone how to activate that then?
Yeah, great question. So there are, I say, 4 kind of core pillars to actually teaching channeling. The first is activation, right? And this is the energy flow, because when we're teaching channeling, it's not a theoretical concept. It's actually a form of energy work. We're receiving energetically. So we have this central pillar through which we receive. A lot of people are not super connected to it. And when I talk to people, I can always tell when their channel is really activated or not, because they do what I call spontaneous channeling, where they might be having a shower, walking on the beach, and suddenly they'll get a download and be like, oh, this came through, or received this, or I channeled that. But it's not a constant dialogue or stream of information that they can have two-way conversations with. But their channel is open. They just haven't figured out how to use it. That's the first thing, making sure they have that. Then the second part is healing what is showing up in the throat, any fear around it because of past life experiences, even experiences as children we were shut down and weren't allowed to share. When we channel, it's something wants to move through us. But if we receive it and we block it and we don't allow it to move through us, we need to heal actually what's in the way of us being able to share it authentically, fully. And thirdly, I also do believe like there's a system. I see so many people, and I've taught hundreds and hundreds of people how to channel now over the years, over all walks of life. And what I tend to see over and over again is people say, hey, I've done this channeling course, or I've read this book and I was told to close my eyes, meditate, call forward a spirit guide, and then talk. And they're like, nothing happened. I'm like, yeah, of course. That's a guided meditation. That's not channeling. So I also see it as an artwork. There's, tuning into different dimensions, understanding the discernment, knowing how to change our frequency to reach a specific vibration. So when I teach channeling, there is a full methodology for how we do that. And I treat it as its own artwork, just like energy healing isn't just close your eyes and receive energy. There are systems built around it. So I also believe in actually having that part of it too. And then I also believe there's a personal aspect of it. It's not everybody's the same. It's not cookie cutter. Some people are here to channel light language. Some people are here to trance channel, to channel artworks. And so there's that personal support, guided support, to ensure that you're not trying to channel how everybody else does, but to identify your unique gifts that you're here to share with the world. So,
yeah, cool.
Yeah.
How would you define the difference between channeling and a download then?
Ooh, I love this question. So a download is when your channel is open. So we have this central channel that connects through the top of our head. So A download is when we might be doing something, we might even be meditating, but our channel is open. And so we receive information from the universe. It might be from our higher self. It might be universe. It might be from a guide. We don't actually know where it comes from. It's just like this lightning bolt that then lands, usually through the form of claircognizance as well. We're like, oh my God, I've had this idea, da da da. And it's like the idea is it. It's not like this long stream of conversation and then you can ask back, but it still comes through the central channel, the same place channeling does. But we're like, I've got this download and that's kind of it. With channeling, it's very intentional. We don't just kind of open up and see what comes through. It's like, who are we connecting to? The higher self, the spirit guides, who are we channeling today? And then that central channel connects directly to the being that we're connecting and channeling to. And it becomes a two-sided conversation, not just you receive a little zup. The channeling part would be, I got a download. Let me ask my higher self about that download. What am I meant to do with this? When does this come through? Okay, great. And you're saying this back to me. So I see it as a two-sided conversation rather than just a little like comment from the universe. Here you go. It's like picking up the phone and having the conversation as channeling.
Cool. I love that distinction.
Yeah.
You mentioned claircognizance then. What does that mean and what are the other versions of that?
Yeah, so claircognizance, and I see channeling as its own spiritual gift, kind of like mediumship. And then we have our psychic abilities, which we all do, but I see them as quite separate. And you don't need to be psychic to be a channel. They're completely separate. But claircognizance is when we get that knowing, that like, oh, I know I have to do this. I feel like a lot of people get it with mentors. So they might hear someone speak and be like, oh my God, I have to work with that person. I don't know why. It's just, I know it. They're going to give me whatever it is I need to go to where I need to. So that's claircognizance. And then we have our other clairvoyance, clairstinence, the clear feeling, which I had so much as a child and I couldn't understand it, but I always just knew when something bad was going to happen. And I remember being a kid and I used to play basketball because I'm very tall. And I remember I couldn't play because I would get this awful feeling in my body knowing something bad was going to happen. And it was just this feeling. And I knew what it meant, but I didn't know what was going to happen. So I would just sit there until the bad thing happened. And I'm like, oh, finally, like I feel better. And I remember being like to my guides, I don't like this. Can we stop this? Like, can I just turn off that ability? Because this sucks. Like, I just sit around in pain until the bad thing happens. And so I also see it with our psychic gifts, and I haven't had it since then. With our psychic gifts, we have the ability to turn them on, turn them off, and they are these energetic centers. And the psychic senses are more in our energy body, right? Rather than the central channel, which is where the channeling the information comes from. But it's just different ways of perceiving, and different people have different strengths, different gifts that it comes through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what happens if someone doesn't believe in people who are psychic?
Okay. That's cool. I mean, they're allowed to have their beliefs, right?
Yeah.
I'm very like, people get to believe what they want to believe, and yeah, I'm focusing on the creation of the reality around me, and yeah, bringing the people that I need. I have had people come to my events and my programs who are like, I'm skeptical. I don't know if I can do this. But I say, okay, cool. Like that's totally fine. I mean, people don't have to believe if it doesn't serve them, right?
Mm-hmm. Do you see more people or less people becoming more skeptical about this, as you've gone through your career? Yes.
I remember when I hope I'm allowed to swear.
You're allowed to swear.
Okay,
Go for it.
I remember, and so I spent my teenage years in Sydney. I remember being 16, reading David Icke, and I went to see David Icke when he was in Sydney. I can't remember. I think I was 17, 18. And there were like maybe 50 people like in the crowd there, and it was just like, it was so niche. And I remember I met up with someone in Hyde Park in Sydney once when I was 17 because I had like learned about being a starseed and all of this, and there was one other person in Sydney who I was able to find online who was like, I'm a starseed too. And I was like, oh my God, we're the only two starseeds in Sydney. And it was just like not a thing. And now I'm like, wow, like so many people are activated and aware. And I think there's been a really great side of it where we're seeing people like Joe Dispenza who are making these spiritual concepts, and it's almost like the science is the bridge. I'm very much, I guess, I think it's left brain. I always forget left brain, right brain, where I don't need the science. I know that a lot of people do, but for me, it's like I'm very connected to just, I guess, the faith, the connection, the divine knowing. But I feel like with all these incredible science-based spiritual leaders who are leading the forefront with this, it's really been a bridge for so many people to actually understand, wow, vibrational truth and nature and all these aspects. But it has, in like, yeah, how I've seen it, even in just the last 15 years, it's changed so much. It's so spoken about, and it's just, yeah, I think it's so exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. It's one of those things that just, as technology rises, and consciousness rises, to be able to match it, like it becomes such a more normal conversation. It's like all of these personal development events are growing. People are becoming more and more open to it. I'm of the belief that, as as technology rises, consciousness has to rise to be able to match it. And we have more conversations that are more open, and all the skepticism just starts to fade away as we start to, bridge, either spirit and science or religion and science and all of these pieces, so that we can actually start to alchemize all of these pieces, so that we actually evolve as humanity to be able to return to what our innate nature is. So, we're in that very unique time in history again.
Yeah.
And when we kind of step into those times and spaces where, consciousness is evolving at a faster rate, what does that like open up for humanity?
The first thing that comes to me is our potential. I think it just really expands the potential. And I think we've seen that. I was just thinking the other day, like how incredible it is that we have AI and what it is, and everything that has just been birthed over the last 40 years, even, is just incredible. And I feel as the consciousness raises, we're able to bring more of our full potential to Earth and express that through inventions and self-expressions. And I think it's a very exciting time to be human. It's a very exciting time to be alive, and seeing how creative everyone is and the ideas that they're channeling and bringing through, and the speed that it's all coming through.
Yeah, cool. What can we learn from ancient civilizations about this?
You ask good questions. It's so interesting because I was channeling on the other day, talking about, because I work a lot with Atlantean councils of light, because there is a lot of repeating cycles that's happening. And I was talking with my guy literally yesterday or the day before about AI and how AI has been used in the past, and that we're coming up again to that point. So I think the greatest thing that I've seen from ancient civilizations, and I've worked mostly with the Atlantean connection because that's where I'm connected to. I'm not so connected to the other ancient civilizations. And what I've really learned and understood from them is that there is a respect for Earth and humanity, that everything has to be based from the heart. Everything has to come from a place of love, of respect, of honor, of reverence, because as soon as there is a disrespect of the land that we're on, the earth itself, and the energy of using greed, taking more, taking from others as well, it starts to distort an energy. And I really, I'm one of those spiritual people, I'm really on board with AI. Like, I just think what it's going to do for humanity is phenomenal. And I also know that there's multiple timelines, and I've seen the timelines where the Atlanteans used AI and how they had it in their crystalline technology and they worked with it for healing and other things. And I fully believe that that's what we're moving into and what is available for us if we continue to be in a space of how can we serve humanity? How can we support Earth right now?
Mm-hmm. And what happened to the Atlanteans?
Good question. So, corruption, distortion, testing things that they shouldn't. And I believe that there was a technological technological distortion is the right wording that I want to use, where it completely went against the laws of the universe, interference, and it was to such a point that it created a dimensional splitting, dimensional rift, which created a lot of issues. And Earth was just like, no, I've had enough. And the waters came and completely wiped and was like, we're restarting this because it's so disrespectful of Earth and the laws of the universe. So that's why I think it's so important that as we're in this time now, that we are respecting Earth and coming from that space of divine service, divine love, because otherwise I think we're going to get wiped too. Earth is going to be like, nope, let's try that again.
So what can we do to learn our lesson this time from your perspective?
Good question. I really believe that our work, and I think it's very, very important for people in personal development industry, because my view on this, those are the light leaders. Those are the ones who have come here to lead. And so when people, especially the people listening to your podcast, they are the ones who have actually come here to create the new way and show the new way. And that's why they're like, okay, well, I don't want to be in a 9 to 5. I want to create a new way and be a new way and live this new potential. And I already know for so many of those leaders, it's a deep, deep desire to have a positive impact on Earth. And I already know so from speaking and being with so many of them that it's almost even something that keeps them up at night. And when I think back to when I started my business, that was it for me. Like when I understood what was happening in the world, the reality of it, the matrix, all the stuff, it was like one track mind, like, oh, I've got to raise Earth's vibration. I've got to support the shift. And eventually I was like, oh, I need to create a business. But it started out of that desire for impact. And I know that so many in this industry, that's the deepest desire. And I genuinely feel like if we listen to that part of us, because that's a part of us that is so connected and remembers that we're here on mission, we're here for divine service, divine contribution, when we fully surrender and listen to that part, it's always going to lead us on the right track and where we need to go. And that's how I also see us all coming together into a highest possible timeline.
Mm-hmm. How do we go beyond, if there's a, large group of the people out there that are, fighting against the matrix, how do we go beyond that? Because if we only ever fight it, then we actually in another experience feed it.
100%. And that's exactly, like, I fully believe that. I'm like, if you're fighting against it, you're creating it, as where like you're focusing on it goes. And I was definitely in that when I first learned about everything. I was like, oh, we've got to stop this and stop that and stop this. And then I realized, well, actually, like, all that's doing is feeding and co-creating it, because I'm bringing awareness and energy to it. Well, what do I actually want to create? What do I actually want to shift into? Oh, okay, I want to support activating light leaders, soul purpose, spirituality, all of that. So I do believe that if, someone is waking up every day and going, how do I fight this? How do I stop this? It's like, okay, well, what's the opposite of that? And when it's very hard to be in a state of divine love, even joy and gratitude, when we're constantly focusing on what's not working, what needs to shift, what am I fighting against? And it places us in this state where also we end up being in fight or flight a lot, because we're so focused on that. And then our nervous system, which distributes light in our body, it can't activate its full potential. And it ends up kind of keeping us in this loop that we just can't break out of. So yeah, I'm very big on the like whatever you're focusing on, you're creating. And like the more we work with energy, the more potent and powerful our focus and our awareness is. So we also have a responsibility for where we place that focus and attention.
So in that, it's like, depending on who you hear it from, but if you look at like David Hawkins' work, and he talks about like levels of consciousness, the majority of humanity, I think it's based on his scale, it's like 85% of people are below the level of integrity, or 200. So that's, the majority of humanity is driven by fear, is what he's saying. So how do we shift what it is to be able to go beyond being driven by fear, by fight, flight, avoidance, all of these pieces?
I'm curious in your work with the type of, because I know you work with a certain I'm going to sound a bit arrogant here, but like or make you sound arrogant, but like people who are almost like a step above that, a step above in consciousness, like they're ready. I'm looking for the right phrasing. I'm not quite
Yeah,
getting it.
yeah, I get what you're saying. There's like different points in the journey where you do different pieces of work, and NLP is very much a modality that takes people from, you know, being reactive to actually going and doing a lot more. So it's often driven by fear still, but then it allows them to actually get into action, which is better than being in shutdown. And then there's other people that will do different layers of work when they've already integrated that.
Yeah.
So I understand what you're speaking to.
Yeah, and I'm curious with that in your line of work with where you work with people, and because I know you know this stuff consciousness like really well, that it's one of the things that you really embody. Is that something that you tend to see, that people at that level where they're already awake and they're already conscious, they're still operating from fear, or
Yeah, there's definitely pieces of it. You know, if any time that we look at our nervous system is driven by fear, and any time that we fall back into a fight or a flee or an avoidance mechanism, then that's only ever driven by fear. It's part of our innate nature to be able to deepen our relationship with fear, to be able to open it up. It's not something that is our conscious upfront driver at all points in time. But then as someone becomes more successful, what do they fear? They fear losing their success. So it's this deepening relationship with fear and opening up to the receivership to be able to come back to it because of all of the little subtle areas where it plays out on an even deeper level. So yeah, that's how I see it play out. How do you see it play out?
So interesting, because I don't know a lot about the David Hawkins, so I was curious. So for me, it relates to divine trust and the way I see it. So one of my core beliefs that really like fundamentally shape my reality. Well, actually, I say I have two. I believe that one, everything is always happening for our highest best. I fully 100% believe that. And two, we have a divine plan that we made before we incarnated for the work we were going to do, the path we were going to take, the soulmates we were going to connect with, that was going to shape and build our reality here. So with those two beliefs, it's very hard for me to experience something and go into, oh no, fear, 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 because it's always met with this, well, if this is happening, it must be for my highest good. If this is happening, it must be for part of the divine plan, or I've gone off plan and they're trying to bring me back in. So for me, when I see people who are in a lot of the energy of fear, which is why a lot of my education and the teachings I give are reminding people, you are here for something and there's this divine plan. You're not alone. You are supported. Everything is happening for your highest good, because it moves us out of this state of, I'm scared. I have uncertainty. I'm not sure if something bad happens, and into, hold on, I get to trust. I can trust myself, my soul, my purpose, my path, and have this knowing that I am deeply loved and deeply supported, and that actually every step is working out for my highest good. So I guess in that sense, it's more of the approach I take is more of a transcendence into divine knowing and divine certainty of fear. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. In our work in holographics, we talk about the line of fear is really the line of trust. Yeah, so what happens is when people have this experience when they're in fear, it's just like, okay, cool. That just means they're not trusting. They're not trusting themselves. They're not trusting the universe. They're not trusting. And what perpetuates that expression is all of the areas where they perceive that they've been betrayed.
Can you elaborate on that?
So when we have this experience of fear, we have something that happens to us. We perceive that we've been betrayed because it's not how it was meant to be. And it creates this argument with the way that the world is. So this fear, betrayal, trust line is the thing that like kind of plays out for all of these people. As soon as someone says, you know, they have trust issues, they really have a wound of betrayal. It's like they have these times in these places where they perceive that someone betrayed them, that then it shows up then as, oh, I can't trust my partner, I can't trust my clients, I can't trust these people. That comes from the wound of betrayal, which has this underlying fear component to it. So
I love that. That's very interesting. And I'm just thinking, you know, how people experience the betrayal of life as well, like what they expect life to be, how it unfolds. And that even then in their belief system, in the creator, the universe, of how that shows up, and the lack of trust in that. And I always say to people when they first start working with me, because people do look at me like if spirit says something, you do it. I'm like, yeah, pretty much, because I have this deep level of trust, but I almost compare it to, I have this level of trust because I followed the path and was willing to start to trust. Like, I didn't close off and say, no, I'm not doing that. At first, I didn't have this deep level of trust, but every time I got a sign or I was told to do something or given an instruction, and I did it. And even when I was like, I remember at the start of 2020, it was January, and I was teaching workshops in person. And that's how my husband and I met. And I just loved it, was passionate about it. Energy healing workshops in person, had been doing it for years. And in January, they said, all right, Athina, you're going fully online, like get online, and this is your last workshop. And I remember I was at the workshop and I was devastated. And I was like, and also like, I trust spirit. Like, okay, that's coming through. Great. 3 months later, like, we were in lockdown and I was not panicking. I was like, okay, great. Like, I've got my business online now. And so it's like, when I look back at my life, it's so many instances where I think people, they receive a feeling or a thought or a knowing, and they go, oh no, I'm not going to listen to that. I'm not going to listen to that. But when I actually have listened to it and received from spirit and taken the guidance and the advice, my life changed immeasurably better. And that has then developed a trust. I don't think I was born with this level of trust. It's come through from my experience. And I also look at everything that I'm now experiencing in my life, from relationships to partnerships to business to abundance, all of it. Every single one of them came from my willingness to trust the guidance I receive and take action on it. And that's why now I get to sit here and be like I will jump off a cliff if spirit says that's what I need to do, because I have, through my journey, been able to create that level of trust.
Yeah, cool. Where does free will choice come into this then?
This is also a really good question. I fully believe we have absolute free will. I believe that is one of the blessings of our realm, and also one of the challenges, because from what I've seen and experienced in my channelings, there are higher dimensional states, higher dimensional places, planets, where when beings are born, they know exactly who they are, what they came here to do, their gifts, their mission, their purpose. And there's only that way, the highest aligned way. And so it's almost like it's not a question, do I do this or do I do not? And I sometimes compare it to myself, because at a really young age, I was like, oh, this is my mission. This is what I was born to do. And this is what I'm here to share with the world. This is my gifts. This is how it's going to benefit the world, benefit me. And I could today go, screw this. I'm going to go open up, get my accounting degree, whatever, just do anything I wanted. But why would I? That's not aligned with my highest path and plan. So we have free will. And I believe that when we are really divinely connected to our unique path that we're here to share, it's almost comes with a question, well, why would we steer off of that when that's the path, the timeline that's going to bring us the greatest joy, the greatest fulfillment? It's going to utilize our gift. It's going to create the impact that we're here to have. And so I almost see it as like hard mode versus easy mode, where hard mode is resisting that divine guidance, the surrender, the pulls of the universe. And easy mode is when we're like, actually, I can surrender to it. But I fully believe in this free will. And in that sense, I feel very surrendered to the guidance of my higher self and my soul plan. So I don't feel the need to go, no, I'm not going to do that, when I know it's what's going to make me happiest.
Yeah, I love that. And the piece that I love with that is the exact frame that you use. It's like, in this realm. Like, so many people get caught in, other places that they're at such war with where they are. And then they start to, fight the way that the world is and the laws of this dimension, wishing that it was a different way, creating all that internal suffering, creating that hard mode for themselves, perpetuating that experience. So, I love the way that you frame that. In terms of, I think, kind of the final question as we kind of begin to wrap up, what's the area of life or the thing that you're facing off with in courage right now?
It's interesting, because I would say absolute and full surrender. And I do feel like the path I've chosen, or the path I'm here to experience, is like deeper and deeper levels of surrender. And I do believe that part of my mission is to be a living example of what happens when we follow like the divine plan to a T. And people, like, I think I've achieved and done a lot by the age of 30, and people would go like, how did you do all that? And I'm like, I didn't. I just surrendered to the plan that already had all of it. And I believe it's part of my mission. But right now, it's been literally about 2 days ago. And this was, I was woken up by my guides and was like, all right, Athena, today you're creating this and channeling this. And I spent about 30 hours I slept in there, but I dropped everything and I went all in channeling this body of work that I am creating right now. And there is a lot of surrender to that. And I've just been shown how it's going to restructure my entire business, how things are going to change. And it's interesting because courage is such a unique frequency. Like even the word, when I think about, can I ask your definition of courage?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's like a couple of different pieces. Like often with courage, people who are being courageous don't actually label it as that. That's the first piece. It's just like they're just doing the thing. They're living their life. They're doing their thing. And then in hindsight, people are like, oh my God, that was so courageous. How did you do that? They're in such alignment that they don't actually label it as that. So they're often in a higher frequency than courage, but people label it as that. So when the way that I define courage is the thing that we utilize to be able to go beyond whatever it is that we fear. So again, in the holographic model, we talk about the thing that, allows us to be able to break through fear is courage. It's that facing off with ourselves to be able to do it anyway. You can use, people say things all of the time. They're like, I don't have the money to do it. It's like, okay, well, that can be your reason to do it or the reason not to do it. It's exactly the same thing. And when we can actually just do the thing regardless of whatever is coming up for our human part of ourselves, then we actually come from this place of courage. It's a place to come from. It's not a place to, look outside of ourselves for. It's a place to come from. It's a choice. And we can actually choose that and choose our path and actually follow it regardless. Then in that moment, we're being courageous. It's not something outside of us. It's a place to come from. So.
And do you feel that it comes from a place of will, like the mental body, where I'm choosing this regardless of what I'm feeling, experiencing outside?
You can do it from different places. You can do it from the reactive of like I have to. You can do it from the will of the mind of okay, I'm going to will myself to do it. I'm going to force myself through it. We can do it from the intellect, which is even more mind. It's like okay, cool. This makes sense to be able to take this path. Or we can do it from the intuitive, which is like I feel called to take this path. Or we can do it from the mystic, which is just like okay, cool. This is the alignment. This is where I'm at. I'm going this direction. We can do it from any energetic frequency that we choose from, and each is going to come with a different experience.
I love that. And I really appreciate that explanation because, I was like, courage, is that the right word that I would use? But when you explain it in the way the mystic is like, this is a path, I'm going to do it 100%. And that's what I've been in this vortex for the last 3 days of just this huge body of work that is coming through. And it's like, I dropped everything and I've just been channeling it, even like I was sitting there before coming out here and I'm like, it's coming through, it's coming through. And it has made me literally pause and be like, okay, Athena, no content, no sales, nothing, just focus on birthing this and creating this. And even today, Spirit had me like just drop a massive investment. And I was like, great, this is what I need for it. This is what's coming through. So I think that from that perspective would be considered courageous. But to me, it feels just like, well, this is the path. And I'm so grateful. And I can feel where it's leading me. And so it's of course.
That's the statement of the mystic, of course.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It is, isn't it? A bit cliche.
So good. I've loved this conversation so much. What's the best way for people to be able to find out more about you?
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. And thank you for having me, Cody, as well. I appreciate it. So the best way is Instagram, Athina Król, or my website, athinakról.com.
Great. Well, I love this episode so much.
Thank you so much, Cody.